America are thrilled to support the Guildhall Art Gallery with a grant to help them conserve and restore Dante Gabriel Rossetti's La Ghirlandata. The grant has come from the bank's Art Conservation Project, which aims to help not-for-profit museums and galleries restore works that are in danger of deterioration but that are considered national treasures. We're delighted with what the conservation team has been able to produce, and I'm just thrilled that this piece is now going to be back on public display for audiences to enjoy today and hopefully forevermore.
This is one of the most popular works in our collection. It's also an intensely private and personal painting for Rossetti. We're delighted to have the support of the Bank of America Art Conservation Project grant. It's allowed us to really get to know one of our paintings through technical analysis, which hasn't been done before on this work. And it's allowed us to conserve both the painting and the frame together. So now they are at their most powerful and they're in their best possible condition to be enjoyed by the public.
When the painting first entered the studio, we assessed its condition, and it actually is in pretty good shape for a painting of its age. We knew it had a number of problems, that the most important of which was the flaking issue. So the paint was tenting, which is where the paint actually lifts off the canvas and is in danger of flaking away. There was also the issue of the structure of the painting. The lining that had been done in previous years wasn't very good quality. It had lots of lumps and bumps in it. The stretcher that the painting was on was overextended and weakened so that it was no longer supporting the canvas properly. We began a technical investigation to better understand the artist's materials and techniques, and also to direct our treatment programme. So we looked at the painting in invisible light, in ultraviolet light, infrared light, and we also had a digital X-ray of the painting taken. When the painting is viewed in UV light, you could very clearly see that it had been previously cleaned by somebody in the past, and they had concentrated on cleaning the faces, the flesh, the hands and the flowers, all the key interesting little areas, but had left the green foliage around the figure and the perimeter of the figure and large parts of the green drapery. We took further samples and did cross-section analysis to actually work out where we had varnish layers and where we had resinous paint. We have ended up with a painting that has been preferentially cleaned and is unbalanced, and that really is what we are seeking to do to try and address that in the cleaning treatment.
This frame really has a dual importance. It's a work of art in its own right. It's got meticulously hand-carved medallions and beautifully water-gilded flats made by the famous pre-Raphaelite frame makers Ford and Dickinson. But it's also got vital importance to the painting. It was designed by Rossetti himself, even down to the colour of the gold, which he specified had to be blonde to match with the dark greens of the painting. Rossetti saw the frame as a vital component of the artwork, and he sometimes finished his final brushstrokes with the canvas in the frame to ensure that the work of art worked as a whole.
It was in a very poor state before treatment.
As well as being structurally unstable, the frame was suffering from numerous losses in the decorative scheme. Most distractingly, there was a thick layer of ingrained dirt covering the whole of the frame surface. Some processes in this conservation treatment were inherently irreversible. Cleaning, I won't be able to reapply the dirt. Whatever I remove, it has to be in the effective way and safe for the object.
So when we've examined the painting thoroughly, we're able to approach the treatment programme for the painting. The previous cleaning in the areas of the faces and the hands had rather unbalanced the composition. We use a range of materials to actually think about cleaning and removing the varnish layers that are non-original to the painting. We can use free solvents, gelled solvents, and aqueous gels, and you can tailor very specifically your mixture to remove just the varnish layer and not affect the paint. We found that Rossetti had mixed some pigment into his varnish layers in order to create shadows within certain passages, and as that is an original material, we were unable to remove it. So in actual fact, the cleaning of the lower layers was only partial. We were able to thin and even up and improve upon the appearance of the lower layers and allow the painting to be more balanced. At some time in its history, possibly in the early 20th century, as it becomes weak and brittle with age, the painting was lined, that is, adhered onto a secondary canvas, a new canvas, and then restretched onto its stretcher. Now, by now, that lining has actually begun to deteriorate itself. So we took the decision to actually remove the lining canvas, and that was done by a specialist liner. And he removed the lining and the adhesive, and then he prepared a new canvas. We've taken the decision to archive that old stretcher, and we've made a new stretcher which will fully support and allow the proper tensioning of the new canvas.
For this treatment, I had a flexibly traditional approach. Where possible, I used traditional materials which were part of the frame's original construction, and this was to keep the integrity of the frame's material makeup. The aims of this project were quite specific. I had to try and bring back the frame to the former glory of Rossetti's original conception without airbrushing its life history. As Rossetti was so specific about his colour of gold, it was vitally important for the gold leaf that I applied to match almost exactly to the original gold leaf. It was vital that on treatment completion the frame appeared uniform, so therefore I had to distress and tone my new gilded areas so that it matched as closely as possible to the original frame surface. The aim was for it not to be clearly evident what was new and what was old.
At this stage, the painting has had all varnishes that have discoloured and removed, and there are damages. There is abrasion in the surface as a result of previous cleaning and other accidents. So any losses of any depth have to be filled and levelled. The abrasion that a painting has suffered can be very disturbing, and in fact in this painting it was a subtle difference, but it made a lot of difference to put that aspect of things right. What you're doing with retouching is to look very carefully at the perimeter of your loss and work inwards from that, matching the colour and gradually making that loss disappear. There were actual losses in her hair that I had to put back. There was abrasion around the profile of the face. In fact, abrasion very often happens in those very delicate areas, those soft little areas, you know, that separate the hair from the face, for instance. And that's actually very often over-restored. You've got to be very careful what you put back there, and not to go too far. The least you do, the better. The principle of reversibility and stability for the materials we use nowadays is a very important aspect of our work. We, generally speaking, use mimetic retouching, which means that we are attempting to match the losses in the painting as exactly as possible. That's so that the spectator is not distracted in any way by the losses. The differences are quite subtle, but I think that the viewer would have a very different experience in front of the painting now. Making the image neater, for instance with her face, I think it does now appear much clearer. The rather beautiful lines of her neck and hair are now restored.
On treatment completion, the frame's stable, uniform and complete. is far more along the lines of Rossetti's original conception, and hopefully you would agree that it draws the eye towards the painting.
Having completed the treatment, the painting now appears much cooler in tone and fresher because of the removal of that yellowed upper varnish, and it is more balanced. The varnish was very thick beforehand, very glossy, and you had no sense of the texture of the paint beneath. And now, with those varnish layers removed and the varnish that we have put on to saturate the paint, it's not nearly so thick. You can actually sense life within the texture of the paint.